Well, folks, today we're taking a trip back in time, not to some fancy French bakery or a barbecue joint in Texas, but to the gardens of our grandparents during the Great Depression. See, back then, prepackaged convenience wasn't an option. These folks relied on their green thumbs and a whole lot of ingenuity to put food on the table. Now you might be thinking, Alton, why are we digging up the past? Well, turns out these forgotten vegetables weren't just survivors, they were nutritional powerhouses, packed with vitamins and minerals that would make a modern-day multivitamin blush. Plus, they were adaptable, drought-resistant, and could be stored for what seemed like an eternity. Over the next few chapters, we're going to unearth 25 of these garden heroes. We'll dig into their history, uncover their unique flavors, and discover why they deserve a comeback in our modern kitchens. So grab your trowels and your gardening gloves, because we're about to embark on a culinary adventure that's both delicious and a little bit humbling. Remember, folks, these veggies weren't just food, they were a lifeline. They represent resourcefulness, resilience, and a connection to the land that's all too easy to forget in our modern world. First up, we're shining a light on a root vegetable that's often relegated to the back of the crisper drawer, the rutabaga. Now I know what you're thinking, rutabaga? That weird turnip-looking thing? Yes sir, that's the one. But don't let its humble appearance fool you. This veggie was a staple during the Depression for a reason. You see, the rutabaga, sometimes called the poor man's potato, was a master of disguise in the kitchen. You could roast it, mash it, even bake it into a surprisingly tasty pie. And talk about storage! These babies could hang out in a root cellar for 4, sometimes even 6 months, providing sustenance long after the first frost had come and gone. But the rutabaga's secret weapon? Vitamin C. That's right, folks. This humble root packs more of the immunity-boosting vitamin than an orange. And during tough times, when access to fresh fruits was limited, the rutabaga stepped up to the plate, keeping folks healthy and strong. So, next time you're at the market, give the rutabaga a second look. This forgotten hero of the Depression might just surprise you with its versatility, its resilience, and its ability to add a unique twist to your culinary repertoire. Now, if the rutabaga was the nimble second baseman of the Depression garden, the mangle worzel was the heavy hitter, the home run king. This monster of a beet, sometimes tipping the scales at a whopping 20 pounds, was a true testament to the power of nature's bounty. Imagine, if you will, a root so large it could feed a family for days. That's the mangle worzel. And it wasn't just about quantity, folks. This beet was packing some serious sweetness thanks to its high sugar content. We're talking naturally sweet like Mother Nature intended. Now you might be wondering, Alton, what do you do with a beet the size of a bowling ball? Well, you could roast it, of course, bringing out its natural sugars and creating a side dish that was both hearty and sweet. Or you could chop it up and add it to stews, soups, and even pickles, adding a touch of earthy sweetness to every bite. But the mangle wurzel's generosity didn't stop there. This versatile veggie could also be used as livestock feed, ensuring that both families and their animals had enough to eat during those lean times. It was a true testament to the ingenuity of our grandparents, who knew how to make the most of every single ingredient. Now, folks, let's talk about a vegetable that might just fool your taste buds. Salsify, sometimes called the oyster plant, isn't found on the coast, but in your garden. And no, it doesn't have gills or pearls, but what it does have is a flavor that some say is reminiscent of the sea. Think of it this way, you've got your potatoes, your turnips all hunkering down underground for the winter. Salsify? It's right there with them, toughing out the cold. But here's the kicker. You could leave this root in the ground all winter long, digging it up as needed. Talk about fresh, local, seasonal eating. And get this, it's not just the root that's edible. Oh no, our resourceful ancestors used every bit of this plant. The greens, which kind of resemble grass, could be tossed into soups or stews, adding a touch of earthy flavor. So remember, with Salsify, you're getting 2 vegetables for the price of 1. That's the beauty of these forgotten vegetables. They're survivors, just like the folks who relied on them. They're a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of folks who knew how to stretch a meal and a dollar. Next up, we're digging into a vegetable with a bit of an identity crisis. Jerusalem artichokes, also known as sunchokes, aren't from Jerusalem and have nothing to do with artichokes. Confusing? You bet! These knobby little tubers are actually the root of a sunflower, and like their sunny brethren, they're packed with energy. But unlike sunflowers, these guys hide their treasures underground. Now here's where things get really interesting. Jerusalem artichokes are naturally sweet, but not because of sugar like you might think. Their sweetness comes from inulin, a type of fiber that our bodies don't digest quite like regular sugar. This means they've got a lower impact on blood sugar, making them a good option for folks watching their intake. But the real magic of Jerusalem artichokes lies in their resilience. These plants are tough as nails, able to withstand freezing temperatures and even sprout up through snow. They're like the Energizer bunnies of the vegetable patch. Just keep going and going. Alright folks, let's talk radishes. Not those little red pops of pepper you sprinkle on salads. We're going big, we're going bold, we're talking about winter radishes. These behemoths can grow as large as turnips, and they're about as tough as a week-old biscuit. Now these aren't your average crunchy salad toppers. These radishes have a mellower flavor, a bit sweet, a bit spicy. You can slice them up raw, roast them, or even shred them for storage, just like you would with cabbage. But wait, there's more. Not only are the roots edible, but the greens are as well. You can cook them up just like spinach, adding a peppery punch to any dish. Talk about a 2-for-1 deal. And let's not forget their superpower. Winter radishes are natural pest repellents. That's right, plant a few of these around your garden, and you'll be sending those pesky bugs packing. Now that's what I call a multi-talented vegetable. Well folks, we're back in the garden, or should I say what's left of it after those first few frosts. Some clever characters are tucked away underground, just waiting for their time to shine. Today we're going after one of those frosty survivors, the parsnip. Parsnips? Aren't those pale, carrot-looking things nobody eats? You're missing out. Parsnips are like the strong, silent type of the vegetable world. They actually get sweeter after a good frost. The beauty of parsnips is that they're content to stay put all winter long. Just leave them be like a buried treasure, ready to be unearthed whenever you need a hit of sweet, earthy flavor. Speaking of flavor, parsnips are incredibly versatile. You can roast them, mash them, puree them into soups, or even fry them up into fritters. Those natural sugars caramelize beautifully in the oven, giving you that crispy golden brown exterior. So, next time you're at the market, don't pass over those humble parsnips. Today, we're diving into the world of multitasking vegetables. Meet Hamburg-rooted parsley, a plant that knows efficiency. This variety offers more than just frilly green leaves. It also boasts a hefty edible root. 2 for the price of 1. Hamburg parsley leaves are packed with vitamin C. Chop them up for a burst of fresh flavor, but the real star is the root. Roast it, mash it, or grate it raw for crunch. Now I know what you're thinking, turnips? Those bland, boring root vegetables my grandmother used to make me eat? Well, it's time to give turnips a second chance. Turnips are fast-growing and drought-resistant. Just 6 weeks from seed to harvest. Packed with vitamins, minerals, and fiber, perfect for dry climates and low-maintenance gardens. Roast, mash, puree, or pickle them. And don't forget the greens. Sauté or toss them in a salad. Next time, don't pass over turnips. Give them a try. Now I know what you're thinking, collard greens, that's not forgotten, that's a staple. And you're right, but during the Great Depression, these leafy greens were more than a side dish, they were a lifeline. See, collards have this superpower. They laugh in the face of frost and scoff at summer swelter. They're the botanical equivalent of that friend who's always up for an adventure, no matter the weather. And just like that friend who's always prepared, collard greens are ready to be preserved any which way you please. Canning, drying, salting, you name it, collards can handle it. This meant that families could enjoy their bounty throughout the long winter months, a comforting reminder of sunshine and sustenance even when times were tough. But wait, there's more. These leafy greens are nutritional powerhouses packed with calcium for strong bones and vitamin C for a healthy immune system. They were a simple solution to complex dietary needs during a time when access to diverse foods was limited. So, the next time you see collard greens, remember their legacy, resilient, versatile, and always there to lend a helping hand. Now let's talk about Swiss chard, and no, you don't need a passport to enjoy this versatile vegetable. It's the Energizer bunny of the garden, a cut-and-come-again marvel that just keeps on producing. Imagine you harvest a few leaves for a salad, and what happens? It's like magic. More leaves sprout up, ready for another round. During the Depression, this meant families could rely on a steady supply of fresh greens, even when grocery money was scarce. This wasn't just about convenience, it was about stretching resources and making the most of every inch of garden space. And let's not forget about the nutritional punch Swiss chard packs. This leafy green is loaded with vitamins A and C, crucial for maintaining good eyesight, healthy skin, and a robust immune system. Imagine trying to weather a depression, let alone a common cold, without these vital nutrients. Swiss chard was like a secret weapon, providing essential vitamins that kept families strong and healthy during challenging times. So next time you're at the farmer's market, give Swiss chard a nod of appreciation. It's a testament to resourcefulness, resilience, and the enduring power of good, honest food. Friends, let me introduce you to the Danish ballhead cabbage, a true champion of the Depression-era garden. It's the dead of winter, the ground is frozen solid, and most garden plants are nothing but a distant memory. But not our friend, the Danish ballhead. This cabbage is a survivor, tough as nails, and perfectly content to chill out in the cold. We're talking 6 to 8 months of storage, folks. That's like having a built-in salad bar in your backyard, even when the snow is piled high. Now, you can't talk about Depression-era staples without mentioning beans. And navy beans, oh boy, they were the workhorses of the legume world. Picture this, a pantry shelf, stacked high with jars of these little protein powerhouses, ready to bulk up a meager meal. But their talents didn't stop at the dinner table. See, navy beans are nitrogen fixers. That means they take nitrogen from the air and pump it right back into the soil, making it richer for other crops. Talk about paying it forward. Drying them was a breeze too. Just leave the pods on the vine until they're good and crispy. Then shell them and store them in a cool, dry place. No fancy canning equipment needed. These little guys were a true testament to resourcefulness, proving that good things come in small, unassuming packages. And let's not forget about the flavor. Creamy, hearty, and oh-so-versatile navy beans could be simmered into soups, baked with molasses for a touch of sweetness, or tossed into salads for a protein punch. Space in a Depression-era garden was precious, almost as valuable as the food it produced. Every square inch had to earn its keep. That's where our next contender, the Kentucky Wonder Pole bean, really shined. These climbing champions could shoot up 6 feet or more, clinging to trellises and fences, maximizing every bit of vertical real estate. But their efficiency didn't stop there. Oh no, these beans were like little green factories, cranking out pods all summer long. You could pick them young and tender for a fresh snap bean treat, or let them plump up and dry on the vine for winter storage. Talk about a 2-for-1 deal. And speaking of winter, those dried Kentucky Wonders were a lifesaver. A hearty pot of bean soup simmering on the stove was a welcome sight on a cold evening, filling the house with warmth and the promise of a nourishing meal. So, remember the Kentucky Wonder Pole bean. They teach us a valuable lesson. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to simply climb over it. Now let's talk about a fruit that often gets overlooked, but was a welcome treat during tough times, the ground cherry. Imagine this. You're a kid during the Depression, scavenging for something, anything, to satisfy your sweet tooth. Suddenly, you spot a patch of these curious little lanterns scattered amongst the weeds. Inside each papery husk lies a golden treasure, a tiny, tangy sweet fruit bursting with flavor. They're like miniature tomatillos, but with a personality all their own. You pop one in your mouth, and for a brief moment the worries of the world melt away. But here's the thing about ground cherries. They're survivors. They'll happily self-seed year after year, popping up in the most unexpected places. And once those husks turn papery and brown, you can store those little gems for months. So, the next time you're at the farmer's market and you spot a basket of ground cherries, don't be shy. Give them a try and remember the generations past who relied on their sweet resilience. Now, you might think of peas as delicate little things, but field peas, well, they're tough cookies. See, during the Depression, folks needed crops that could handle a bit of hardship. And field peas, they fit the bill. These weren't your fussy garden variety. They were drought-resistant workhorses, happy to grow even when the skies turned stingy. And talk about versatility. You could pop those pods open for a fresh green snack, shell them for a side dish, or dry them out for storage. Dried peas, they were like little protein powerhouses just waiting to bulk up a soup or stew. And as if that weren't enough, field peas were practically little agricultural altruists. Yep, you see those root nodules? Those are chock full of nitrogen-fixing bacteria. Now most folks wouldn't get too excited about bacteria, but trust me, these little guys were essential. They took nitrogen from the air and converted it into a form usable by plants, essentially fertilizing the soil for the next crop. So field peas weren't just a tasty and nutritious food source, they were also improving the soil while they were at it. Talk about a win-win situation. It's no wonder they earned a spot on the Depression-era dinner table. Alright folks, let's talk about a true American icon, corn. Field corn, the sturdy backbone of agriculture for centuries. During the Depression, it was a lifeline. A high-yield crop, packing calories into every acre. Not for eating raw, but incredibly versatile. Dried kernels became cornmeal, a pantry staple. Think cornbread, mush, even tortillas. Stored for months in a cool, dry place. Rural families relied on it to keep going. Let's be honest, folks, the only thing better than a good onion is a good onion that lasts. And during the Depression, storage onions, they were worth their weight in gold. We're talking about varieties specifically bred for their staying power. able to hang out in your pantry for 8, even 10 months without turning into a mushy mess. See, back then, you couldn't just pop down to the supermarket for a fresh onion whenever you fancied. You had to make do with what you could grow and store, and that's where storage onions really shined. They were like the Timex watches of the vegetable world. They took a licking and kept on ticking. But their talents didn't stop there. Storage onions, they were like the benevolent rulers of the root cellar. They actually helped prevent spoilage in other veggies stored alongside them. Something about those pungent fumes, I guess. Natural preservatives, you might say. And the best part? Growing and storing them was about as complicated as, well, growing and storing an onion. Easy to plant, easy to harvest, and once cured properly, they were content to chill out until needed. They were the strong, silent type of the vegetable patch, always there for you, flavoring your soups and stews long after other crops had faded away. Now here's a vegetable you don't see every day, cardoons. Imagine a celery stalk, but bigger, bolder, and with a bit more personality. They were a staple during the Depression, and for good reason. These architectural marvels produced edible stalks throughout the winter, especially in warmer regions where they acted like perennials. Imagine having a fresh, crunchy vegetable even when the ground was frozen solid. To prepare these bad boys, folks would blanch the stalks to mellow out any bitterness. Think of it like giving them a spa day before they hit the dinner table. After a good blanch, they could be sautéed, braised, or even baked into a gratin. And the best part? Cardoons are making a comeback. So keep an eye out for these prehistoric-looking stalks at your local farmer's market. You might just discover your new favorite vegetable. Forget your average carrot, folks. Let's talk skirret. This little root was a true lifesaver during tough times, and its sweetness? Well, let's just say it could make even the most frugal grandma crack a smile. We're talking sweeter than your average carrot. Almost like a parsnip decided to take a vacation to Candyland. And the best part? Skirret is as tough as nails. This perennial plant could handle whatever Mother Nature threw at it, coming back year after year. Now you might be wondering why you haven't heard of skirret. Well, it fell out of fashion for a while, overshadowed by its more glamorous cousins. But trust me, this underdog deserves a spot on your plate. Roast them, sauté them, or even candy them. The possibilities are endless. Just be prepared for a flavor that's both familiar and surprisingly delightful. Let me introduce you to Good King Henry, a vegetable fit for, well, a king. This versatile plant was a true gift during the Great Depression, offering a bounty of early spring greens when folks needed it most. Imagine this, the snow's barely melted, and you're already harvesting tender shoots that taste like a cross between asparagus and spinach. Talk about a welcome sight after a long winter, and the generosity of Good King Henry doesn't stop there. The leaves themselves are a powerhouse of nutrition, perfect for sautéing, steaming, or even tossing into a salad. And because it's self-seeding, you plant it once, and it keeps on giving year after year. Now you might not find Good King Henry at your average supermarket, but keep your eyes peeled at farmers markets and specialty stores. This forgotten gem is ripe for rediscovery, and trust me, your taste buds will thank you. Now here's a plant you don't hear much about these days, the American groundnut. This little fellow was a lifesaver during tough times, providing a valuable source of protein and calories. You see, the American groundnut produces these tubers underground, kind of like potatoes, but with a nutty flavor. And get this, you could harvest these tubers without killing the plant. Just carefully dig around, grab what you need, and the plant keeps on trucking. Talk about sustainable eating. It thrived in poor soil, laughed in the face of drought, and generally just refused to give up. Imagine being able to rely on a plant that could handle almost anything nature threw at it. These weren't just crops, folks. They were survival tools. Our ancestors knew how to make the most of what they had, and the American groundnut is a perfect example of their ingenuity. This forgotten vegetable reminds us that there's a whole world of edible plants out there just waiting to be rediscovered. So, next time you're looking for something new to try in the garden, give the American groundnut a shot. You might just be surprised at how much you like it. Alright, let's talk beans, but not just any beans. We're talking about the multi-talented runner bean. Now these beauties weren't just good for eating, although they were certainly delicious. We're talking fresh snap beans bursting with flavor, dried beans perfect for hearty winter stews, and even beautiful edible flowers. But the real magic of the runner bean was its resilience. These plants could handle the heat like nobody's business. While other crops wilted under the scorching summer sun, runner beans just kept on producing. Imagine a steady supply of fresh, nutritious food, even when the weather was working against you. That's the kind of dependability our grandparents relied on. And let's not forget about those gorgeous flowers. In a time when beauty might have felt scarce, runner beans brought a splash of color to gardens and dinner plates alike. They're a reminder that even in the toughest of times, there's always room for a little bit of joy. So, the next time you're planting your garden, remember the runner bean, delicious, versatile, and a true survivor. Now before you wrinkle your nose and skip ahead, let's talk about the humble dandelion, or more specifically, its cultivated cousin. I know what you're thinking. Dandelions? Those pesky weeds popping up all over my yard? But hold on, because this ain't your average weed. Our grandparents knew a thing or two about stretching a meal, and the cultivated dandelion was their secret weapon. See, these dandelions with their larger leaves and robust flavor were like the superhero version of those little yellow flowers. Every single part of the plant was usable, from root to tip. We're talking fresh, vitamin-packed greens in early spring, when other sources were scarce. The leaves could be eaten raw in salads, cooked like spinach, or even dried and ground into a surprisingly tasty tea. And don't even get me started on the roots. Roasted and ground, they made a caffeine-free coffee substitute that would put your fancy lattes to shame. So next time you see a dandelion, don't reach for the weed killer. Remember its legacy as a versatile and nutritious food source, a true testament to the resourcefulness of generations past. We've talked about intentional crops, folks, but what about those volunteers, the ones that just show up? Lamb's quarters, that's your guy? You might mistake it for a weed, but this unassuming green was a lifesaver during the Depression. Now this ain't your fussy arugula. Lamb's quarters are tough customers, drought-tolerant and happy to self-sow. That means less work for you and a reliable source of greens even when Mother Nature throws a curveball. And don't let its plain Jane looks fool you. We're talking about a nutritional powerhouse here. Packed with iron more than spinach pound for pound, it's what those tough-as-nails grandparents would call good for what ails you. So next time you see it in your garden, don't yank it, thank it. Alright, let's head to the coast, where even the toughest gardeners can get a break thanks to the salty bounty of the sea. Seakale, my friends, isn't your average leafy green. It thrives where others fear to tread sandy, salty soil. Now imagine a time when fresh produce was scarce and you've got a plant that laughs in the face of drought. That's seakale for you. Come spring, it sends up tender shoots like asparagus from the dunes, and later on, edible leaves for salads and stews. This stuff was a godsend for coastal communities, providing vital nutrients when gardens were struggling. It's a reminder that sometimes the harshest environments offer up the most resilient ingredients. Well folks, there you have it. 25 forgotten vegetables, each with a story to tell about resilience, resourcefulness, and the power of plants to sustain us. These weren't just crops, they were lifelines, helping a generation weather the storm. So next time you're in the garden or at the market, remember the lessons learned during those tough times. Choose variety, embrace the unusual, and never underestimate the power of a humble vegetable. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more fascinating content. Happy gardening.